Welcome back, Nerd Squad. Marvel isn't the only one to have moments that triggered some of their biggest fans. You wanted us to also dive into some of the biggest DC controversies that have happened recently, and here we are. Both of the big two are guilty of moments that made fans question exactly what the heck those creatives behind the brand and even some of the not-so creatives behind it were thinking. Today we'll be taking a look at some of the more recent events to happen in the world of DC that left us scratching our heads or face palming. We've all had moments like that. Everything on this list has taken place in the last decade. So take a deep breath in and prepare to maybe get a little bit of your nerd rage on as we explore the top 10 newest DC Backlash moments from the past decade. And be sure to stick around till the end of this list where I will have some bonus content coming your way. All right, let's get counting. Number 10, Green Lantern film. One of the first steps taken towards creating a cinematic portion of the DCEU was the Green Lantern film that came out of 2012, starring Ryan Reynolds. Well, he may now have landed the perfect role for himself playing fellow Canadian Marvel's Deadpool. This foray into the world of superhero movies was exactly the opposite of that success, a complete flop, and is widely regarded as a bad decision, a bad move. Most of the problems behind this film boiled down to a lot of clashing of taste when it came to the creatives involved in the film's production, and a ton of really bad CGI. Like, if you don't believe me that it's bad, go back and watch it. On the other hand, I just watched the first Toy Story again today, and that is still amazing. Number 9, fires GAIL Simone. Remember when DC fired famed comic book writer GAIL Simone from her most popular book, Batgirl? Yeah, that happened. And though DC later welcomed her back and Simone herself has never really spoken ill of what happened, fans at the time were pretty outraged. Batgirl herself was ranked number 36 for sales when compared with overall comic book sales. And yeah, that ranking includes titles outside of DC. That's overall. DC reportedly fired her via email, and fans weren't just outraged because of this one time, but because DC actually had a history of pulling Simone from titles without any apparent regard for story arc trajectory and without respect really for her work. So this was like one of those final straws that seemed to break a lot of people's backs. Number 8, denies Batwoman marriage. While Batwoman may now be married, there was a time when DC actually said no to that idea. After Batwoman reappeared in the New 52 as the bold and new Kat Kane, who was kicked out from the military because she was a lesbian, Batwoman became more popular than ever. A big part of this actually had to do with the creative team for her series, J.H. William III and W. Hayden Blackman. She was well written, well drawn, and killing it. Her series blew up and her fan base saw a dramatic increase in numbers. People were loving this new Batwoman. Things were heating up for her romantically as well, and the plan was for her to get married to her fiance, Maggie Sawyer. The two were supposed to have a wedding and tie the knot. Unfortunately, at the last minute, DC said no. This prompted not only backlash from Batwoman fans, but from her creative team as well, who both responded by walking away from the book because of DC's refusal. Also, a lot of this backlash came from the fact that DC was doing this a lot to people at the time. Last minute, just telling creatives, actually we're gonna change directions. Creators were like ripping their hair out. Number 7, Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. The DCEU has had its fair share of dealing with fan backlash, especially when it came to the film Batman vs. Superman. Love it or hate it. I feel like there are people that have strong opinions about that film. But one of the worst things to come out of that film for most people was the decision to cast Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Eisenberg playing Lex as a casting choice was pretty much criticized by fans from day one, and it didn't get any better when the trailer was released or later when the film followed. Eisenberg was labeled as being too young for the role and was also considered not intimidating enough. Lex is a powerful force to be reckoned with, a brilliant, confident mind, a man with a big ego, and a man who's established. Like, this is Superman's ultimate foe here. Jesse Eisenberg's portrayal to many fans lacked in every single category when it came to Lex. To make matters worse, one thing Eisenberg did not lack in the role: hair. He had a big messy mop of it, while Lex is iconically known for being bald. He's so iconic for it, like he even at one point blames Superman for his own baldness in the comics. It's a story point. That's how big it is of a deal. Number 6, Batgirl cover art. Raphael Albuquerque was asked to create a variant cover for Batgirl issue 41 in 2015, and what he decided to create led to such an uproar that he chose to actually pull his variant following the astounding amount of backlash that it received from fans. The variant cover featured Joker with his arm draped across Batgirl's shoulders, one finger seemingly tracing a big red grin painted on her face, while in his other hand, he holds a gun. The cover and the outfit Joker is wearing evokes the officially non-canon and yet somewhat canon story of The Killing Joke, where Barbara Gordon was shot by the Joker and paralyzed, all in an attempt to drive her father, Commissioner Gordon, insane. In fact, Raphael did admit that that was where he got the inspiration from. After the variant's reveal, and after 4 days of constant complaints, DC announced the variant cover would be cancelled. And like I said, Albuquerque himself was the one that was like, it's fine, we'll just take that out. Oof, that was a rough one. Number 5, where is Oracle? When the Birds of Prey film was announced, fans of the superhero team were understandably excited. Birds of Prey is the second most successful female-led comic series to have existed at DC, only being surpassed by Wonder Woman when it comes to sales. So despite the fact that Birds of Prey doesn't have a huge place in pop culture outside of the comic book world, it still has a sizable fan base within the comic book community. So when the film was announced, but with Harley Quinn at the helm, being the one responsible for bringing all the team's heroes together, a lot of people were understandably outraged. Harley Quinn has worked alongside the team of heroes maybe once or twice before, but she is in no way known for being their leader in the comics. In the comics, it is Barbara Gordon, under the guise of Oracle at the time, who managed to bring the group together. She is actually one of the main members and one of the founding members of the team, and yet when it came to the cast, there was no trace of Barbara Gordon to be found or mentioned. No Oracle, no Batgirl, no Babs whatsoever. For many, this was a deal breaker. And though I personally think they managed to make the film work surprisingly well, even without a Babs, a lot of fans were disappointed that she would not be appearing. Number 4, Batman Censored. When DC announced the Black Label imprint, they warned fans that it was going to be something different, even more edgy and more adult than their usual fare. In DC Black Label, it was promised nothing would be off the table. So when Batman Damned came out and featured one of the most famous characters out there, Batman in the nude, DC was a bit caught off guard when fans appeared shocked. They had warned them, after all, and a frazzle to avoid the backlash that they were receiving from fans, subsequent prints censored Bruce Wayne's private parts. And DC hoped this would help to satisfy fans in regards to their initial outrage. However, this decision actually backfired on them, and they were even further criticized for not having the gall to stick with their initial decision, and giving in to those who had complained. So while some fans had actually complained about the nudity, it actually turned out there were even more who appreciated DC's boldness, and was sad when they stepped down from it. Number 3, controversial Batman artwork. DC recently created an uproar when it posted and then subsequently deleted artwork promoting an upcoming Black Label series by Frank Miller titled Dark Knight Returns: The Golden Child. The image appeared to show Batman tossing a Molotov cocktail and featuring the words, "The future is young." This image was posted to both DC's Instagram and Twitter accounts, and eventually made its way to the Chinese social media site Weibo. Many felt the image was a reference to the ongoing protests in Hong Kong, and those who were against the protests started to speak out, encouraging a boycott of DC Comics, saying that posting the image meant that DC was taking the side of the protesters. DC responded by simply removing their posts featuring the artwork. Deleting the posts in turn led to backlash from fans who felt DC was backing down and basically allowing themselves to be bullied into surrendering their right to have an opinion at all, to their freedom of speech, all because of money. In other words, people felt like they were really selling out and bowing down to Chinese communism, which people have opinions about. Anyways, we won't get into that, but it's a thing. Number 2, Gotham High. You know it's gotten bad when the comments are turned off. That is what happened to the trailer for the new DC series, Gotham High. The creator herself, Melissa de la Cruz, has revealed that the purpose of the comic was to create a kind of Gossip Girl Batman. She goes on to state that she wanted to reinvent Chuck Bass, who to her is still Bruce Wayne, with all that iconic Batman personality. What is Batman personality? What does that mean? And yet, Cruz also reportedly confessed that she has little knowledge when it comes to the world of Batman comics, instead focusing on putting her own spin on the character she'd be writing. This has left so many fans worried about the series in regards to all of the dramatic changes that it poses to well-established characters and all the history and lore that they suspect it will completely disregard. And I mean, with DC characters, these characters are really well established. The trailer itself for Gotham High has already posed a love triangle involving Jack Napier, who I can only assume is the Joker, Selina Kyle, and the most richest and handsome guy at school, Bruce Wayne. Yikes. I am sensing some major Riverdale vibes with this one. And although I will admit I do watch Riverdale, that is a guilty pleasure of mine. It still is not great. It's not good, I'm not gonna lie. So I feel like this will be like that. Number 1, reboots on reboots. And yet not a reboot in sight. Get what I'm saying? You know what I mean? No one will know. I think it's a Canadian show, so Americans won't know what I'm talking about with reboot. DC has a huge and long history when it comes to their characters and the DC universe, but as comic publishers have struggled to stay afloat and hold on to sales, even DC felt the cold, icy breath of the Grim Reaper approaching. An attempt to drum up more sales and make their comics more widely accessible, this led to a relaunch of their main continuity, and the New 52 was born. However, this attempt to garner the attention of new readers and increase sales ultimately failed, with the increase being much more minimal than DC had hoped. In the end, this led DC to ultimately abandoning the New 52 in order to relaunch and rebrand again only 4 years later with DCU in 2015, and then once again with DC Rebirth in 2016. Fast forward to 2020, where we are expected to see yet another soft relaunch with DC's 5G events. Of course, they don't want us to call it a reboot, but we're changing some of the continuity again, so and it's gonna be canon, I believe. Thank you so much for watching, Nerd Squad. I hope you learned a little bit more about the darker side of DC's history, outside of the DC comic book lore itself, which is obviously also quite dark. More when it comes to the opinion of the public, and tons of DC fans on decisions that DC has made. Do you feel that DC and Marvel respect their fan bases? What were some of the cringiest DC controversies in your opinion? And what are some of DC's moments that were the opposite for you, that actually reminded you why you really love this publisher? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're on your way down there, be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. This has been Top 10 Nerd, and I'm your host, Amanda McKnight, reminding you, as always, to stay nerdy, YouTube. Oh, and watch out for that bonus content. Okay, let's say bye to these people. Arrivederci. Marvel isn't the only one to have moments that have sparked or triggered some of their... I don't know why I'm always the one talking about nerd rage. I feel like I don't have a lot of nerd rage, except for the Maximoff twins. That's pretty big for me. And this whole thing about Batwoman being denied marriage.